6:34, we're gonna call to order. If everyone would mind rising to the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we are here basically to discuss the question or questions depending for the referendum ballot. Let me just sort of put us all in the same mindset so we know where we are. Next Thursday is the special town meeting that was posted. People should have gotten this lovely pink flyer in the mail. And on it, there is a note. That note is in improper form for the ballot. Okay, so it cannot appear on the ballot. And it basically states that the Park and Rec program is not required to be licensed or regulated by the state. So we are here tonight to basically sort of either make two questions to address that or to incorporate that into one question for the ballot on April 7th. And the polls will, I can confirm again, will run 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. on that day. Okay, so are we all pretty much in agreement at this point, correct? Okay, so now our job here right now is town attorney has provided us with a couple of options. We could have two separate questions, or we could incorporate one question, which would just simplify recognizing that we would basically be starting a program that would be unlicensed or unregulated for the start. And there's been other discussion, as we noted on other meetings, that the director and the Park and Rec Commission would basically look into what the process is for getting licensed. But right now, the state does not require us to be licensed, so we could open up the program being unlicensed and unregulated. But I think the new director understands that we are looking to have very high standards and with the program. So that's where we are. We are here to decide one question, two questions. You have the options in front of you. Does someone want to make a motion so we can discuss?
Sure. Which one should I make a motion about?
Oh, do you want to make a motion to discuss options for
Yes.
a ballot question?
Yeah, I move that we discuss the two alternative ballot questions provided by the town attorney. And should I read them?
Well, I don't want to limit it to those options if there might be others.
Okay, just
the discussion of options, yeah.
Yeah, but that's.
Okay, I mean, that's not what he said though,
Okay,
so,
you're clarifying. Okay.
yeah.
Oh,
So
did
are
you want it
second?
broader, not just?
I just want, if we're gonna
Okay.
move to have discussion, I just want to move to have a discussion
About-
that might encompass anything else that comes up.
With questions,
Right,
regarding questions on the
right.
ballot,
So we could discuss the ballot.
right, questions that are going on.
I would second that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who's taking the minutes?
Yeah. Janice.
Did that make any sense or?
Yes, and I'm also recording, yeah. So, okay, all in favor of discussing?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so now we are open for discussion. So we have either the option with the two questions, or we have the option with incorporating the phrase with regard to.
Sorry.
So we have either the option with the two questions. We have the option.
You're good. You're good.
You're
good. Sorry.
That was a little scary, okay. All right, so thoughts.
The one question is closer to what we were trying to do. Well, like we're trying to do. I don't object to the two. I thought going to two questions would trigger another town meeting or something, but apparently not. I talked to the town attorney and said, no, this is just about format of questions.
I agree that the,
Vin, can you hear?
okay, he gave a thumbs up just so we didn't answer that. Looking at the one question, it does incorporate the note piece, for lack of a better.
Yeah, both of them do it, and
Yeah.
I guess the problem was we had given two alternatives last time, but neither one, the town attorney didn't feel either one was correct format.
Right.
So
Right.
he drafted these rather than us drafting them in, and he still might not. So-
Right. Jeannie, your thoughts?
So I just want to be clear, I'm looking at the right thing. Is this the first question,
No.
That would be the only question.
Okay,
That
and
would be
this
the
is,
only, it's the same thing, it was only the clean format, if you see next to it
oh,
says
I
clean.
see,
I
okay.
just
That was the
wrote,
red line, there was a
that
red
was the
line.
red
that
line,
Okay.
and then we forgot the part about unregulated, that's why I
Okay,
hand wrote
okay,
that in
okay.
there. So it would be the
Okay.
one question that identifies, for lack of a better word, I'm gonna use the note
Mhm.
into the question that would appear on the ballot.
So I was wondering if we could talk about, I hesitate to change the question that came to us from the petition, just
Mhm.
because that's, a lot of people looked at it and signed it, and I mean, what are your thoughts on keeping the question as it is and adding something like, shall the town, a second question,
This is the
which would
second
be,
question he drafted.
no, I don't want to look at his. The second question I'm asking you to consider is, shall the town of Bethany authorize the Parks and Recreation Department to establish and operate an unlicensed town-run before and after school care program? It's similar to this. It's just simpler.
Read it again?
Most of it is exactly the same as the petition question. It just
Yeah.
adds,
Just, if you could just repeat it.
sure, sure. Shall the town of Bethany authorize the Parks and Recreation Department to establish and operate an unlicensed town-run before and after school care program?
So you're taking out in accordance with the state?
I mean, if you want to add
Okay.
that,
I'm just
don't know,
saying,
because I
just
wanna
read
verify.
this and see if this is almost exactly what you just said.
right, but first I'd like to hear what you think about what I
Okay, yeah,
said.
I was gonna make the same point, I think Demis was, the way Vin had worded it was basically what you said, except instead of, it's asked, should it be licensed rather than should it not be not licensed? 'Cause it's really
No,
the
no,
same thing.
no, she's got the original question, but she just added in the
Unlicensed.
unlicensed.
So,
That's what I think, but he
But-
said his is, shall the town run before and after school care program be a licensed and regulated program? So it's really the same thing, it's just,
I
No.
have this one. This is the one that I thought we were talking about.
okay, and maybe that's a different one.
Because you're basically taking out the phrase that says in accordance with.
I-
state
It's
law.
almost exactly what Gina
if
said.
that's the only difference, I would be okay with that phrase.
No,
Yeah.
that's, that one you're showing me is the one single question.
Yeah,
Scroll
yes,
down a
correct.
little, then,
No, I understand, but
talking
I
about
thought
the-
Gina
the
was
second
talking about
question.
one question.
No, I'm talking about two questions.
So then what would the second question be?
so it's really whether you phrase
The
it,
first question would be exactly as the voters sent to us. So,
Okay,
so my point at the beginning was, I hesitate to change what they've submitted to us. I think that a lot of people looked at it and signed it and agreed with it, that
Okay.
language, and so I hesitate to change
I
that.
hear, okay, okay.
So then I thought that
So-
maybe,
The second question just clarifies it as an unregulated or an unlicensed program. Basically the same question and just adding
I
that
mean,
piece in.
I guess ultimately it takes the position of what the no was trying to do. It's just the question, in a
right,
question
both
form,
of
which
them, I
is,
think, accomplish the same result. Whether you have it in one question or two.
I just
I
think you
don't know,
have
I
to
don't-
ask yourselves what you think is the most efficient way to do it.
Mhm.
Right.
well,
wait,
efficiency
Vinny's
isn't,
waving.
efficiency isn't the only concern.
No, if it, meaning what is the most direct for people to, when they read it, so they know what they're voting on? I don't mean efficient
Okay,
clerically.
okay.
Hold on,
Hold on,
Vinny's
Vin.
waving,
Hold
hold
on.
on,
Hold on, she's gotta raise the volume, hold on.
go ahead,
Go. Yes,
just talk loud, just talk louder.
Speak as loud as I can.
Okay.
And,
good.
what's most critical is that whatever question is presented is not persuading or persuasive in any way to get a voter to vote one way or the other. So, I think, again, the way that I redrafted the question, shall the town of Bethany authorize the Park and Rec Department to establish and operate in accordance with state law an unlicensed and unregulated town-run before and after school program? That, by incorporating in accordance with state law, well, if the town wants to do this, it's doing it in accordance with the law. Simply to say an unlicensed and unregulated program kind of says to the voter, well, doesn't say anything about what's legally required. And it could be construed as trying to get a voter to vote against the question. So I think words do matter here, because there's been plenty of litigation and plenty of actions before the State Election Enforcement Commission where people have complained that the way the question was presented was persuasive in favor of or against the question presented. So to say, shall we establish an unlicensed and unregulated program just by itself, like if I'm voting on that, well, it's unlicensed and unregulated. Well, it's not in accordance with the law. I mean, again, a after-school program can be many different things. All right, a licensed program like non-municipal entities are required to comply. It can be a municipal program that is not necessarily licensed and regulated the same way, but it still has obligations to conform to, but not to the degree that other entities have to provide. But there could be a third option, and that's the Wild West of childcare programs. So I think it's important if you're going to incorporate it into the question that you say it's in accordance with state law.
I have no issue with that.
Okay,
Okay,
okay, we're good,
I
we're
don't,
good.
I
Okay,
don't,
all right.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I said before, I don't have any issue
Yeah.
with saying what's actually a fact.
Because.
My only question that the only thing that I care about is I think that I hesitate to change the question that came to us, and I don't see any problem in adding a second question. I think it does the same thing as what the note was trying to do, is to provide that clarification.
I want to.
Only other thing I would suggest, if you were concerned about the voters, is if you look at the bottom of my email, I suggested potential explanatory language that could be prepared by the town clerk and posted at the polls. And that explanatory language would say the following: current state law does not require municipally operated and run before and after childcare programs to be licensed or regulated. If you vote yes on question X, you want any program run by the town to operate in accordance with the licensing and regulatory requirements imposed on non-municipal entities. If you vote no on question X, you want any program run by the town to operate in accordance with current state law, period. So to basically, so if you're going to have a question and you're concerned that there's going to be confusion, so you can authorize explanatory text to be prepared by the town clerk and posted at the polls.
Oh, can I ask a question? Besides being posted at the polls, is there any reason why that explanatory text could not be available at the town meeting next Thursday?
Emanated in your bulletin, mailed to your household, it could be shared at the town meeting.
Okay, that's what I'm asking, because if we can clarify the explanatory text, we can at least give people a good week or so, and we can post it on the town website, put it on,
As well.
Yeah.
So if the question is changed or a new question is added, so question number 2 says, shall the town of Bethany authorize Park and Rec Department to establish and operate in accordance with state law an unlicensed and unregulated before and after school program? If that's your question and that's your new question too, then you could have that explanatory text. So when people are voting on question number 2, they'll know what their vote, if they vote yes, what it means, and if they vote no, what it means.
I'm like,
Right,
thinking one question would just be,
I'm
Easier.
okay with either, but yeah, I think either option, the one question or 2 accomplishes the result. I mean, at their last meeting, since we had to have it in the, if it had to be in the form of a question, we were moving the note inside the question
Right.
mark with a parenthetical,
yeah.
but now it's just, I don't think
All
it's a
right,
huge
so let me
difference
ask-
to make it.
Mhm,
Okay, so if we do the 2 questions, the original question as it stands per the petition,
mhm,
right? Okay. We know what that question says.
right.
Okay, now what would the second question, just add in the unregulated and unlicensed piece?
And you could add in accordance with state law if you want.
just say it the exact way you guys wanted to go, just so.
My question that I hadn't considered in accordance with state law. I just, assume that people know, but that was probably wrong.
No, but yeah, we shouldn't assume because
Right.
I think.
Like I said, I'm happy to add it in. Do you want me to read it again? It's almost exactly the same as the other one. It's shall the town of Bethany authorize the Parks and Recreation Department to establish and operate an unlicensed town-run before and after school care program.
You wanted to say unlicensed and unregulated or unlicensed?
Either way, I'm happy to add that.
Because that I think was in Vin's other.
Yeah, I'm happy
So,
to add
so
that.
can you read that again? You're
Here,
rewording.
take it on here,
The
take it on
first
here,
one.
then just add the words she
You just
said.
add, after operate, unlicensed, unregulated, and it's almost exactly the same.
You're just adding in those few words.
Yeah.
So you got the single question, so
Ben, you're getting cut up, hold on.
after operate, you add unlicensed and unregulated?
Yeah,
Mhm.
and basically everything else stays the same.
Yeah,
Isn't that the same as Vin's, except it doesn't have it in accordance with state law?
Right. yeah.
is it the same as his?
Yeah, it is.
Should you make copies of
Yeah.
this so that everybody?
Ben, I'm gonna mute you until you have to speak because
This
there's
was
just
the latest
background
thing
noise.
he sent.
Right.
Yeah, so Vin's first
Right, I see what
question
you're
was,
saying.
shall the town of Bethany authorize the Parks and Recreation Department to establish and operate in accordance with state law, an unlicensed and unregulated town-run before and after school care program? Question mark.
Right, it is,
So
it
it's the
is the
same
same.
thing
It's
you
the same.
said with the state law.
It's the same
added.
thing I
Accepted in
prepared,
accordance
yeah.
with the state law.
And I'm happy to add that or not add that. I guess,
I'll tell you why, and just my, and this, that I'm advising why we think that that's important. Is because the statute specifically says that we can't do anything that advocates, right? And that's why we are concerned about the other language. But if you put in accordance with state law, there's no question that this program is complying with state law. Whereas if you read, it's like the question, somebody, when you do a poll question and it says, do you support education reform? Of
Right.
course, who doesn't support reform? Do you support campaign finance reform? Of course you do. Now, you have no idea what that means, but it's right, it's the word reform. We just want to make sure here, when it says unlicensed and unregulated, most people, or a lot of people might say, oh, no, I don't
Right.
support that, but we want to make sure.
Can somebody get up and just,
We want to make sure that it's clear that it is legal.
yeah, I
to do
totally
that.
agree.
That's all.
I totally agree with
That's
that.
why.
I have no issue with that language
Okay,
at
so
all.
that's the first question, right? You guys agree to that?
Well,
what we just said.
what I was wanting to discuss is having the language as it was before and adding this. So if that's not what you want to do, I'm happy to talk about other.
It's your guys' decision, so.
he's.
Oh, wait, hold
Hold
on.
But I don't hear anything.
I just have, Ben, I have to mute you when you're not talking because there's some background noise, so go ahead.
Okay, it must be the time zone.
Yeah, go
But,
ahead.
I think if you follow what Gina's saying, and the selectmen are in agreement, then it should be item 1 is as presented by the petition. I think that's what Gina has said.
Mhm. Yep,
And then item 2 is what we just discussed, which is my number 1 in my email sent at 1:02 PM. I think it was my time. It's probably like 9 o'clock your time. Which simply is the question that we just read. Shall the town authorize the Park and Rec Department to establish and operate in accordance with state law an unlicensed, unregulated town run before and after school program? If everyone's in agreement with that as item number 2, then you'll have item 1, item as presented by the petition, item 2 as we just read, and then you just have to vote on those are the 2 questions for the ballot, and then that's done. Then you're done.
Well, I did want to talk about whether I'd like to have a discussion about explanatory text, like you mentioned, Vin. And
Yeah,
what that might.
I would say this. I'm beginning to really hate FOI. Let's have that discussion, but I think because it's not on the agenda, you're gonna have to get together one more time to do that.
Well, I mean, we're talking about, it's all the same, isn't it? I mean, we're talking about the referendum. We can't talk about a notice that has to do with the referendum. I think we
Well, I
can.
think the agenda says talk about the question. So, and that's not, it's an action regarding questions to the vote that will be on the referendum. So I think that To be
Because
safe, there
you can
should
get
be
it-
another meeting to discuss that part. So you
Because
don't
people have
wanna,
been showing up to meetings,
bypass
picking
them.
on actions of what's posted, what's not posted. I don't want to do anything outside of what FOIA allows. And again, technically, your agenda doesn't relate to explanatory text, it relates to the questions presented. I think you should have explanatory text. I think it should be simple,
Mhm.
something along the lines of but I would just caution, if you do it, you run the risk that someone will say that it was beyond the scope of your agenda tonight, which is a special meeting.
Well, then
That's what-
I hear what you're saying. Why don't we stop talking about it? I'm fine
Right, right,
with,
right.
why don't we stop
Let's-
talking about it?
Let's
Um,
decide how we want to.
But I do want to let you know that I would like to think about that and what it might look like and to
The
maybe
explanatory text?
brainstorm, because I think we should consider
You should.
ideas, right, and how that could work.
Yep.
Okay,
So let's establish what we want for question or questions on the ballot. Because I believe that they have a time conscious to how they, oops, sorry, let me time the table.
Will sent me something today. I don't know if that matters, but he sent me something about referendums and having a 3-week notice.
No, normally you have to, but it also provides if you.
I just wanted to clarify,
You
he
don't
sent
have
it to me today for the meeting, so I just wanted to clarify, because it did say shall be submitted to the municipal clerk in a form appear on the ballot at least 3 weeks prior to the date in which the
That might be
referendum is
for
to be held.
election, yeah,
So I just
Hold
wanted to
on,
make sure we're all
hold on.
compliant.
but no, it doesn't, because we have to hold ours within a shorter time.
Go ahead, Vin.
Right, I just wanted to make
Bob
sure.
is correct. Bob is correct. The referendum must be held within no less than 7 days, no more than 14 days from the date of the special town meeting. And the statute that the town clerk referred to, it says at the second half of that paragraph that if there's less than 3 weeks, then absentee ballot shall be provided within 4 days following the date of when the questions become final.
Yeah.
And I opine that the questions become final on the date of the town meeting.
Oh,
So although you're acting tonight,
Okay.
for timing, for purposes of absentee ballots, the date that it becomes final, because of the way when you read the statute, I'm of the opinion that it's the date of the special town meeting. So absentee ballots will be available within 4 days after the special town meeting.
so is it 4 calendar days? Like, would I have to be available on the
It's
24th?
4 calendar days.
Okay,
They could be
so it'd be
available
like the
earlier.
following Monday.
They could be,
so.
right, but they
Just-
must.
I don't know that if it was tonight, I don't know if they could get them in 4 days,
Right,
calendar
right,
with the
right.
weekend.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So, okay, so let's establish, we want 2 questions.
I'm fine with
Before-
one, but if
I
people
mean-
really want to, I think the way you worded it, Gina, I thought it was a little more confusing because it's almost the same question and then it has.
Just
late-
indicating that it's
later in it.
unregulated and unlicensed.
I
Whereas the way Vin wrote it-
totally agree. Well, his is almost the same.
No, but I thought you wanted the whole language that was in the original petition, plus adding it so the second question would be the same as the first, and then you add the stuff about in accordance with state law, unlicensed, unregulated, so the people will see one question that starts the same way as the other one, and it seems like.
I
it's
just
too
want you to
much
know my
information.
rationale. I was just concerned about changing something that a lot of
Yeah.
people were committed to, but if everyone
Mhm.
thinks that,
But Vin did make the note that we could, but Vin, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said that we can say per the petition or as submitted by
well,
the petition.
he was
this is
saying
the
that
question?
would be item 1 per the petition, and then item 2 would be the changed question.
Right.
So when he
Right,
mentioned that,
he's
yeah,
giving a thumbs up,
right,
yeah.
right. So that's what
Okay.
he said before. I think it would be easier that way, but,
Well, I think if you're gonna have the second question, I would do it more like Vin had sent to us in the draft and just shorten it, so you don't have all the same words in the beginning. It just says, shall the town run before and after school care program be licensed and regulated? So you skip the town of Bethany authorized the Parks and Rec Department to establish and operate, and you just shorten it to the town run program, which you're just referring to what you just said.
I think that's
above.
confusing, though. I like his question here better.
I think that's what he was.
I like this one better because I think that's confusing, because in one question, we're saying it's, this is the law, and in another section, you're saying, let's do something different.
But he's proposing this one. As a single question, and you're saying, ask the
Right,
first question
right,
and then
that's-
ask the second question too?
if you just look, if this is the email that. Okay, so
Mhm.
we're
I have it right here.
proposing this as if it's one question,
Mhm.
or this if it's two questions split up.
There's
So I
another
think
thought
Bob is
process.
saying that it's cumbersome if we use
But-
that
but-
and the other one.
Selectmen,
Yeah.
there's another thought process here. You're the administrators of the town's business, right? And the town meeting is kind of addressing a policy question of should we have this? If you let them vote on question one as they present it,
Mhm.
you could then, if the answer is in the affirmative, well, if the answer is in the negative, then there's no further action to be taken. If the answer is in the affirmative and it says, okay, the town shall direct its park and rec department to operate before and after school program. Administratively, you can resolve the question of whether or not it needs to be licensed or not. Because, even though the town meeting or referendum may vote that it should, in the affirmative, that it not be licensed and regulated, you may decide that it should be, right? Because of the way that things have happened in the past. So you could leave that question as a administrative question. So get the answer to the question, shall the town operate, in accordance with the petition question, and then deal with the concerns about regulation and licensing on your own as administrators of the town's business.
I don't think so, Vin, because, I
No.
mean, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
That's more or less what we voted, and that's why it was petitioned and removed from us.
Well,
So I take it as if they vote on the question, that ability has been removed. That's why we just wanted to clarify, when they vote on it, they're voting for, it doesn't have to be licensed and regulated.
They didn't present that in the petition. The petition specifically said, shall the town of Bethany authorize the Park and Rec Department to establish and operate a before and after school program, period. It had
Sounds
nothing to
right.
do with licensing. It had nothing to do with regulation. That wasn't in the petition question.
Correct.
You inserted that.
No, but that's the reason that it was made.
I don't know that to be true.
Well, you would have known if you were here at some of the meetings.
Well, but that's not what was in the petition. And I'm saying one's an administrative question and one's a policy question.
So I think that we're getting off track because we're trying to incorporate the information that was in the note one way, either through one question or the second question.
Right, which you can do. If you put both questions, what happens if question number one is in the affirmative and question number two is in the negative?
That's why I preferred one question.
Yeah,
Plus, I thought there was gonna be more mailing and meetings involved, which is not the case. So that's why I think one question is closer to what we were trying to do, just a slightly different format. And,
So let me look at the one question in Vin's email one more
Sure.
time.
Mhm.
Cause I think,
but that was the,
is that, yeah,
I think it's that, well,
Okay.
I fixed it with the unregulated and unregulated on the bottom there.
so Vin, can you say again, what would happen if one is in the affirmative and one is in the negative?
Yeah, so what would happen if they vote yes on, so let's assume you have two questions.
Mhm.
Item one is the petition and item two is what we've just discussed. What if the population votes yes for item one, but no for item two? So they want you to operate a program, but they don't want it to be unlicensed and unregulated. Right? But does that mean they want it to be licensed and regulated? I don't know.
But all right, let me ask you a question though, but even if you add a question about having a licensed program, that could potentially put us in a position where we don't have a program, because it takes time to, my understanding, it takes,
That's my point.
yeah.
That's
well,
my point.
that's-
It can
That
take
was
you
one of the
6 to
reasons
12
I didn't
months to
want
get
the
licensed.
question.
Yeah, because if you put that question on there, we may not have a program to start the school year.
But you're putting it on there. You're putting it on there by saying unlicensed and unregulated. Because if they vote no to that, then is the opposite true?
No,
But
if,
here's
if
the
they
thing.
vote no, then they're saying the Parks and Rec can't operate it.
No, what if they vote yes to question number
No,
one?
no, I'm sorry, I was referring to the single question. You're just gonna
Right,
end
if
up with
single
one.
question, there's no question, it's
Yeah.
easy.
That's why I think it's clear. The result will be.
But if you have double questions, then you could have inconsistency. You could say, yes, we want the Park and Rec department to be instructed to operate a before and after school program. But no, we don't want it to be unlicensed and unregulated in accordance with state law. Well, that's an inconsistent thing. So does that mean, yes, we want it to be licensed and regulated? Because if you want it to be licensed and regulated, it could take you 6 to 12 months to get licensed and regulated.
So
So-
if we had the one question,
The one question, because if we
Because I'm
opened up as
listening, I'm
if we opened up as an unregulated and unlicensed program, we're still in compliance with the law because towns are exempt. But that doesn't mean that in the future we cannot become licensed.
but if people vote no with this question and it's only one question, then what?
And then you don't have it.
Then we don't have a
Right,
program.
but I think the point is that people need to understand. And again, whatever their answer is, but legally speaking, I think they need to understand that these types of programs are unlicensed by the state. Right? It's not like you're choosing to unlicense them, or
Right,
you're
right.
being irresponsible and the town of
Right.
Bethany is not going to license it. That's what these programs are. So I think it needs to be clear that what you're voting on is, do you want to authorize the town of Bethany Parks and Rec Department to establish and operate a program in accordance with state law? So people need to understand it's in accordance with state law. That's unlicensed and unregulated.
Right, and so what's missing here, one element that's missing is that, some programs are licensed, right? And I think given the one question, I don't think people have an option to think about that.
But it's the non-municipal ones that are
Right.
licensed. Municipalities
that's where-
don't have to be licensed.
But they could be,
That's
They could
where
be,
your
yes,
explanatory
yes,
text
right,
would
and
address.
that piece is, I think, is missing.
But like
And
what he
that's your
said, that's
explanatory
what
text would address that.
Text can address that.
But it's better if it's addressed in the question, though. It's easier, I think, and less confusing if it's in the question. I mean, some people, I don't know if the explanatory text would be, and I don't want to talk about it too much since
Right,
it's not on the
yeah, yeah.
agenda, but if is it gonna be handed out with each absentee
Well,
ballot? Are people gonna read it?
hypothetically,
Yeah, who knows?
okay, it can be in lots of forms. They refer in the statute to posters, for example.
Mhm.
So at the polling places that explain it, it must be given with absentee ballots, obviously, if it's at the polls. It can be handed out, it can be put in big poster signs, so there can be all different ways to do it. But it has to be obvious. So, I mean, if people are coming in to vote, they're going to see it and see the explanation. If they're doing absentees, it'll be attached to the absentee ballot.
And we could disseminate it at the town meeting next week.
Yes,
Basically,
in
we could have a
addition.
special town meeting, special board of selectmen meeting, at the beginning of next week. And then the town clerk could prepare it in accordance with your instruction. And it could be ready for dissemination at the special town meeting, and then could be posted at the polls at the referendum.
So what I was trying to do with the two questions really is to make it more clear in the questions and on the ballot, because I think it's less confusing than having to look at the ballot and then looking at the explanatory text. And so I'm not even, I don't even have a position. What I'm asking is, can we talk about making it easier for all of the information to be on the ballot?
It is, so like looking at the first question, the one question one that Vin had drafted, what do you think would make it, clearer?
I like the question. It's the same as mine. It really is. It's the same as the question I wrote up. So
Okay.
the only reason I was asking for two is to have consideration for people who took the time out to write the other question. I really, in my mind, I was thinking, let's not touch this question. And then what can I do to substitute the explanatory text that we're not gonna have? So that's what I was thinking. But I'm open to, whatever you guys wanna talk about. I just want you to know where my mind was, right?
Yeah, okay.
Unless you simply say, delete the unlicensed and unregulated. And say, in accordance with state law. Shall the town authorize?
No, I don't wanna do that. that's less
Right.
transparent than
Well,
we need to
but
be.
you're, again, you don't wanna pick a side. You're picking the regulatory and licensed side, or you're picking the municipal unlicensed and unregulated side. Those are your two options, right? And you,
Right,
you
but
don't
it-
have the, because it's a yes or no, and, it has to be your yes or no.
Right.
We can't say or,
Right,
so unless we do this, Gina, consider, two questions. Shall the town of Bethany authorize the Park and Rec Department to establish and operate in accordance with state law a licensed and unregulated town-run before and after school program? That's question one. Question two, shall the town of Bethany authorize the Park and Rec Department to establish and operate, in accordance with, state law, a licensed and regulated town-run before?
But-
This way,
yeah,
when they're picking unlicensed or licensed.
right. But there's one problem is the first question you just read is also in accordance with state law. So why not include that language in question one? Why can't it be in both questions?
It
And-
should be.
And the third option is that what if someone comes in to vote and they're like, I don't want to have a program and I don't have an option here?
Then you vote no,
Okay, yep, that's fair.
right? Then you vote no. If I don't want it, that's the easy one.
Okay,
But if we put a question on there about having a licensed program, we potentially could not have a program to start
That's
school.
the voters, that's the decision of the voters. That's not your decision.
I understand that, but what, I
Right?
feel like
But
we're
if-
going
and if the
backwards
voters
instead
vote
of
no,
forwards here.
Then they vote no. That's out of our control.
Through the discussion
I-
you're having, sorry, but I'm just saying, through the discussion, I'm leaning towards the one question. It's more what we wanted to do. It doesn't introduce a new issue. It just takes what we wanted to have in the note and
That was
the
whole
information
intent.
is now included. It's clarified to say it's in accordance with state law.
Agreed.
I'm fine with that. I think trying to go to the two questions could be more confusing.
An
and-
explanatory text could pretty much do a lot of explanation. That's the whole point of explanatory text.
this is the question I drafted. It's almost the same.
Okay,
I
so
have
do you
no
wanna
issue.
make-
I don't have an
Yeah,
issue
okay.
with
Do you
that.
wanna make a
Yeah.
motion and
You
read
wanna
that?
read, you wanna read that
The
one?
way, and
Okay, because we've been discussing.
Right,
so-
yes, I think,
Yeah.
So you ready to?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay.
I move that the ballot question be as follows. Shall the town of Bethany authorize the Parks and Recreation Department to establish and operate, comma, in accordance with state law, comma, an unlicensed and unregulated town-run before and after school care program? Question mark.
I'll second.
You made a motion? Okay,
I
sure,
second,
okay.
yeah.
And then ask for discussion.
Oh, I'm good.
I think we
We kicked
discussed
this
it
around,
before,
I mean, we
yeah.
kicked it around, so we can vote, I'm good. Oh, yeah, I have to call the vote, I'm sorry. I'm a little punch drunk right now.
You're not sitting where you usually sit, so you're throwing around.
But next week, explanatory text, I'm good, yeah, okay, all in favor of Bob's question as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Well, since we all
You want
said
this
aye,
one?
we're good.
You have the question?
No, good.
okay, do you want
Thank
to
you.
schedule?
I hope
The next-
people can think about it over the weekend, explanatory text, because I
Can we
think
do
that,
Tuesday by any chance,
oh, next week is terrible for me, but
Tuesday or Wednesday?
let me see.
Yeah,
We've already got.
I'm not
something.
even sure if the explanatory text is needed.
I think it is.
You do?
Yeah, I do.
It's on Wednesday, isn't it?
Just keep in mind, you gotta give your clerk at least the day before the, special town meeting to.
Oh, okay,
to
so
write
it would have to
something
be
up.
on Tuesday. It would have to be Tuesday then. Right.
They think it's subsidized.
It's not
But
subsidized
it's
by the
not
town.
subsidized.
Well,
So
we
in the
won't, that'll
past,
be
the
another
after-school
discussion.
program
That'll
is only
be,
subsidized. So an explanatory text.
can address that, can address
Because
that.
people will vote no because they don't want it to come out of their tax dollars.
But that, we're not discussing that here tonight.
I mean, that could be an option, and I think there's other things that the explanatory text could
Absolutely.
resolve.
Right, and you
And
guys
it
will
has to be,
discuss that.
and just
get
remember
all
that
straightened out
it
at that meeting.
cannot sway a vote
That-
either
totally,
way.
yeah.
That's the
So
word,
that's
that's
important.
what the
Yeah,
statute
it
is.
can't-
Right,
advocate.
Is that what
know,
Amity
yeah.
does with its mailing? Is that the?
That's their explanatory text for the budget, yeah, that's their thing.
Okay, you guys.
So-
discuss that
Providing
that
facts
meeting.
it might be, is acceptable. Providing advocacy position is not acceptable.
Is a later time on Tuesday better for you,
I probably could do,
like 7?
I could probably do either.
Okay. I'll post it
So Tuesday, the
tomorrow
25th.
for Tuesday, and we'll make it a hybrid. Tuesday's the 25th.
It's Greek Independence Day, in case anybody's interested.
Thank you so much.
You're set.
But yeah, okay, so
I
Tuesday,
wear blue.
the 25th. And what'd we say, at 6:30 is okay?
Seven o'clock? Or 6:30?
6:30, okay.
All right, I'll
That
see
will
you
be a
then.
special BOS, and that will be to
Discuss.
discuss the explanatory text.
Okay,
Yes.
and I
Okay.
think if we each kind of brainstorm, ideas that might be.
And you know what, maybe we should shoot them to Vin, because he would probably know the formatting and how to, but we'll put all our ideas together in some kind
I'll
of
send him some
format.
stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so to discuss, explanatory text. Okay, can I have, are we good? A motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Hey,
7:15.
Gina,
We are
Yeah.
adjourned. Thank you. one and
Gina,
all.
Yeah.
late mint is fantastic.
I was just gonna ask you.
Yes, fantastic.
Very
We
nice.
never said it was not the question.
All right, have a good evening.